In the exciting days of the 1980s, Games Workshop was pushing a game called Dark Future. This was basically Mad Max on the tabletop. Sadly, it didn't seem to last too long, although it certainly left lasting memories in my mind. I loved the look of it and even have posters of it on my wall. Well, I did, then I moved house. We still need to put them back up. The cars were always the stars of this game, so let's have a look at some of those. My name's Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. Now, if you've not seen Dark Future before, here it is. It's lovely, isn't it? Look at that box art. Beautiful. This is known as the game of Highway Warriors, because if you say Highway Warriors, you have to say it in the authentic Australian accent of the wasteland. Should we have a little look at the miniatures associated with it? So here's our first little automobile for today. It's based on the Renegade plastic miniature car from the Dark Future boxed set. This car has been heavily modified. There's not a huge amount of the original kit left. I think that might have been the intention of these ones though. Have a good kit bashing session, why don't you? This one in particular reminds me a lot of one of the Hot Wheels cars my son has. It's called a lawless or lawless or something. The front end is a bit like a van, and then it's all sort of frame and pipework with a spoiler stuck on the back. I quite like it. Amusingly, the car has a wing mirror mounted minigun. That has to be a very strong mount indeed. I also don't see any sort of ammo feed, but it definitely wins on the rule of cool. Miniguns are ace. Just ask Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now in my notes I've written about the cover falling off, and I have no idea what I was talking about there, so let's move on. The next car is what I think they call a sprint car, or perhaps a stock car. I've never actually seen one of these types of cars race, or even in the flesh. My gut tells me it's more of an American thing, but I'm no racing expert, so it could quite possibly be a very common type of racing car. I have, however, seen this type of car in a set of Hot Wheels. It was blue and had orange writing on it. I never bought it though, so it might have just looked a bit like it as opposed to being the same type. The car itself is a lovely brown colour. A little boring, don't you think? We had an Austin Maxi in this colour when I was a lad. It had a lovely furry tan coloured interior. It was really weird. Now, was the Maxi made by Austin? I can't remember. Anyway, I think we had a bright orange Mini after that, which my mum crashed. Man, cars were ace in the 1980s. Now you can see on the side of the car a lot of graffiti stating Maniacs. This was the main antagonist gang in the early Dark Future releases. All the baddies were usually painted up as maniacs. Would any of you join such a wild bunch? Now when we were lads, me and my friends, we always dreamed of having a car gang. I don't know if car gang is the correct term. You know, like the people in the Fast and the Furious movies. They were a gang of sorts. They hung out together and had all their cars sort of matching as a team. But then we realised that none of us were actually rebellious enough to want to break the law. I mean, we might occasionally speed down some random back roads, but who doesn't? Nowadays, I think the price of fuel would make having such a gang practically unrealistic, wouldn't it? How do these people afford to go drifting in their cars? They must spend all their income on fuel. Next up is a monster truck, like Bigfoot. Remember that? Big in the 80s. This one is a monster truck of the police variety. Do police really use monster trucks? I'm pretty sure they don't. It would be funny as hell though if they did. I would sign up immediately. The monster truck has some spikes on the front. They remind me of the ones on the Rhino kit, but these are a lot narrower. Perhaps they've been cut down and modified? What do you think? I think my favourite part, however, is the rear-facing bolter, like the one on the original Land Raider kit. It's very cool. Police with bolters. It's like the Adeptus Arbites. So here we have a Dodge Challenger. I have to admit I am a bit of a fan of American muscle, as Dominic Toretto would put it. The wheels on the car are rather large at the rear. This was also something we saw a lot more of in the 1980s. I think it was a thing from drag racing. I might be wrong. Now, is drag racing even still a thing? Sadly, to me, the bright orange of the car feels a little out of place for Dark Future, even though some of the interceptors are clean. I'm not sure of why it feels out of place, it just does. There's a big flag attached to the rear of the car. The flag features the good old Jolly Roger, the pirate flag, but this one is a little different. It has a hat. I assume this is a nod to the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. I used to love that as a child. Now, sadly, I can't remember much of the Dukes of Hazzard. By the way, this is them jumping the car. But one thing I specifically remembered was the welded-on doors where they couldn't open them and get in. They'd have to step into the door because it was welded shut. Obviously, there was no window there because otherwise you'd have to smash your way in every time. Anyway, when we were lads, we always tried it ourselves in our parents' cars, and we always got told off. We thought we were cool when we did that. I don't think I've done it since. I might have to go and try that again. Apparently, this next car is a Pro Street T-Bird. I don't think I've ever heard of those, even though I said I liked American muscle. Dominic Toretto would be disappointed. The minigun mounted front and centre on the bonnet is ace. That's the hood to you Americans. I always wondered why it had different names in different parts of the world. Can anyone tell us? Again, due to the blue paintwork, it looks too clean. I think maybe it's because there's not enough stuck-on bits to give it that Dark Future feel. Do you guys know what I mean? We also have some bigger back wheels again, but this time they're huge. I assumed they were pulled off a bigger scale toy to get that effect. Our next car is a copper, or roser, or pig, or whatever slang term you fancy. It's a police vehicle. This one is based on the plastic Interceptor car which came in the main boxed set. It's a lovely car. When I was a lad, I always had a love for American police cars. I remember the day when I went shopping looking for one specifically. And do you know what I ended up with? Prowl from Transformers. The G1 version. He was a police Nissan, a Z of the variety I've forgotten. A 240, 260 or 280 perhaps. I'm sure a car expert will be along shortly to tell us. There's a light bar on the top of this car, and it looks like it's made of something. Can anybody identify the part? Is it a fuse or something? Now apparently the sticky out bits on the front are machine guns. Sadly these ones have bent. Maybe they warped in the sun. Now I am now suffering a bit of nostalgia after that Transformers G1 Prowl story. I might actually have to go and have a look on eBay and see how much I can get an old Prowl figure for. I bet they're rather expensive. If any of you have an old G1 Prowl laying around you don't want, let me know in the comments below. Here we have an interesting looking panel van. I think that's the name of them. I've a feeling this is a total scratch build, judging by the look of it. You can see where the panels join. Somebody didn't do any gap filling on this miniature. Naughty. The van itself reminds me of something from a zombie apocalypse movie. Was there a van like this in one of them? Maybe it was in a few. Answers in the comments below if you can remember. It has the words La Vida Loco on the side, and I hated that song with a passion. My friend would always sing and dance to it. A horrid memory I wish I could wipe from my mind. Who sung that filth anyway? It wasn't Gloria Estefan. Was it some guy? Peter Gabriel? No, I've forgotten. Any help, please? Now, I enjoy the rear-mounted turret ensemble. It looks like the operator would have to hang off the back of the truck and not actually be enclosed. Doesn't look very safe, does it? Fun maybe, but not safe. This next car is what people call an SUV, a sports utility vehicle. I could never really tell what the sports part of that meant though. The colour scheme on it looks a bit tie-dye, like the tie-dye t-shirts we made in textile classes at school. That was always good fun. Did anyone ever do it more than once though? Is tie-dye still a thing? And I haven't seen that done in a while. The turret on the top looks quite strange. It has a sort of clouded coloured canopy to it. Is the glass supposed to be tinted, or am I missing something here? Oh wait, it's not, is it? It's just tie-dyed. That white strip made it look reflective. Well, that's a weird illusion. Maybe I need my eyes tested. There's a gun sticking out of the side with the phrase, "Stop me and buy one." Word on the street is that ice cream men used to use that phrase. I never saw it once though. I think it was the ice cream men on push bikes, and we don't get those anymore. I did have one at my wedding though, and that was great. Now I can't believe it's been 2 years since I got married, and we actually still haven't even been on our honeymoon. But that was due to some sort of famous virus doing the rounds at the time. That little swine put a stop to that. Now, do you think Mrs. Snakeworks would enjoy a honeymoon at Warhammer World in Nottingham? That might be grounds for divorce, so I suppose I'd better not suggest that. It's a diorama up next. Who doesn't like a good diorama? Now this diorama, have I said that enough yet, appears to portray a gang. Probably those maniacs going up against the police of the setting, and I think they're called sanctioned ops. The Maniacs gang remind me of the various Signal gang members from Streets of Rage 2. They might have been in more than the second one, but that's the one I can remember them from. They had big mohawks and lovely coloured jackets. I do miss Streets of Rage. I really like that police bike in the middle. It looks a bit more like a racing bike to me, but I am in no way, shape or form a motorcycle expert, so it might not even look like a racing bike. Would any bike experts like to put their input in? Now, the policeman riding that, I feel, should be wearing a helmet. Perhaps he likes to live dangerously. The diorama creators have used a lot of grit, which I reckon took rather a long time to clean up. I would imagine they used a dustbuster or hoover to do it. I have a Henry Hoover, by the way, and he's brilliant. Here we have a nice silver car. You don't see many of those in Dark Future. Again, this one is based on the plastic Interceptor car kit that comes in the Dark Future boxed game. It was also available in the Battle Cars boxed set. On the back of the car is a booster, which reminds me a lot of the 1989 Batmobile. Actually, I think maybe all the Batmobiles have this, don't they? The 89 one is still my favourite, closely followed by the 60s one. Was it 1966? There's also a parachute on there, which again is another nod towards the Batmobile. The 60s one definitely had parachutes on the back. Damn, now I want to paint one of these Interceptors up as a Batmobile. Holy Dark Future, Batman! The wheelie bars on the back are also very 1980s indeed. Wonderful. Wheelies used to be something seen as cool, and nowadays the wheelie seems to have died a death, which is a shame. I'd like to see more people pulling wheelies. Now there's something about monster trucks, big wheeled cars, and wheelies which seem so damn 1980s. Do you think that came about because of all the 80s car-themed TV shows at the time, like Knight Rider, there was Mad Max obviously, there was Dukes of Hazzard, and all that sort of thing. The 1980s were just so much fun. And what car TV shows do we get nowadays? Brum. It's bloody terrible. This green car is also based on the previous Interceptor miniature. I guess it would be the basis for a lot of Dark Future cars. You know, being the car you get in the boxed set. This one is a little odd. I think it's supposed to be based on an aeroplane. Have a look at those details. Weird. The wings on the side, I assume are wings or extra downforce, but they look like the crap little wings that pop out in Kit's Super Pursuit mode from Knight Rider. There you go, another 1980s car show reference. Now check out the double stacked spoiler on the rear of the car. It's awful. I once knew a lad who did homemade car customizations, and he did things like this. Once he used guttering for side skirts, which almost worked, but another time he stacked 3 spoilers on top of each other and it looked bloody terrible, as you can well imagine. He also had Coca-Cola logo stickers on the side. I think they call those vinyls now. Here we have a hot rod. Now to me, this doesn't look like a Dark Future car at all. Just looks like a new toy car. This time, it's some sort of 1940s looking hot rod. All hot rods look like this in the media. What even is the base car for these? Some sort of old Ford perhaps? Again, we have some more of the big old rear tyres. On a real car, those things would cost a fortune. Tyres are very expensive, you know. Luckily, none of my cars have tyres that big. Those must get in the quadruple figures for those big exotic car tyres, I reckon. Horrible. The reason I think it doesn't look like a Dark Future car is because there's nothing done to it. It looks quite stock. There's no added on weapons, no silly wings, and no parachutes. A shame. Everybody needs a parachute on their car. Now I have here a copy of the Dark Future boxed game, which I'm holding in the style of a Ghetto blaster from the 1980s. Now the miniatures in here I'm contemplating painting up like the box art from either this box or the next box, which is Battle Cars. I say next box, I mean the next release in the Dark Future series featuring more plastic miniatures, which was called Battle Cars. Anyway, which one do you think would be better? Basically the difference is these interceptors are either red or blue. Now interestingly, on the back of this box, here we can see a yellow and white one, which I quite like. Underneath it there's a Maniac's car, which are the evil gang in Dark Future. And interestingly, if you read the writing on the side, it says, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Richard. If you are enjoying the content on this channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below, or up here somewhere. Well, this one looks a bit of a mess, doesn't it? Especially at first glance. I really don't know where to start with this. Which end is the front? Can anyone tell? Does it even have a front? This is the sort of jalopy I expect to see driving around Great Yarmouth seafront trying to look cool. I will have to admit I used to go there as a youngster and I'm not proud of it, okay? I wonder if people still do that. Now, due to the very brown paint job, you can't see them very well, but there's a pair of twin-linked las cannons on there. That's overkill indeed. It's very cool though, and the rule of cool wins every time. There's also something quite strange going on with the wheels. They don't really look like wheels. They look a bit like double-stacked burgers with a protruding hubcap. Is it possible this is some sort of tactical wheel I wasn't aware of? Possibly, but I'm willing to bet it's a kit bash that just looks weird. Here we have another diorama, and I do enjoy them. This time it would appear some poor devil has been caught. Oh dear, it looks like it's the end of the road for him. There's a guy in the background on the hill, just lazing around watching the proceedings. In an earlier video, we didn't know if this sculpt was a casualty miniature or just someone slobbing around. It would appear it's the latter, but I guess you could use it for either. Our poor victim, I think, is a sanctioned op, the Dark Future Universe Police. Well, the traffic police anyway. If you have a look at his belly, you can see a blue blob, which looks like blue tack to me. What do you reckon? Also, the gang that's caught him looks like a 1980s metal band. They look fantastic. My god, I love Dark Future. Anyway, if you want to see some more Oldhammer related videos, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. As always, thank you very much for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.